Welcome back to the second part of the interview. In this episode, we'll be discussing family expectations, vacation, credit, and more. Enjoy the episode. Do you think your mom has different expectations of you and your brother?
Oh yeah, it's come up. So that I'm like, that reminded me. So I remember hearing her. I don't know who she was telling, but she was telling someone. She was like, "I'm just worried about Cassandra because I think I need to leave the house to her under her name." And I was just like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, because she's a woman and she can't buy her own house, so I need to leave the house under her name because I know that." Well, at least my brother can build one. He's an architect, so that's different. So he can build and design his own house, and he'll be fine. He's a man. He'll figure it out. I'm like, I can buy my own house. I could build and design my own house if I want to. I don't have to be an architect. I feel like that very it really offended me, man. It really did. I was like, how could she think that? Also, like, I've done so many things and I've done so much, and I don't think because they don't understand the academic area or anything academic, because, well, my mom wasn't born here, right? And she doesn't know anything about school in the US, and she barely attended school in Mexico, so she doesn't know about that. So anything that I do academically is seen as irrelevant. It's not valuable. Anything that I do in personal life, that's valuable. But because I haven't had a personal life really, then they see as like I'm not doing anything with my life. And I think with my brother, well, one, he got married already and he's younger than me. And I think they're like, oh, like he's making progress in life because he's already married. So the next step is probably going to be a house. So the next step is going to be like kids. So he's doing well in life. Okay. You can have those steps, but if you're not ready for them or you don't have money for them, then I don't see how you're doing well. So I feel like for me, I take longer in doing personal things because I'm very intentional of how it's I plan a lot. So I'm planning on like how it's going to be because I don't want to do something just for the rush of it or just to like check a box in my family's kind of like expectation of me.
Yeah, I think also the idea of like how people prioritize certain things. And I think, you know how many people say that l- money won't get you happiness, like life, like having a good partner, kids, that'll probably bring you happiness. And I think that's what I would say older traditional values are aligned with. And the more modern values are a lifestyle, like to travel around the world. And I think that's what a lot of people like have FOMO, like fear of missing out at their early life because they think once they get older, they can't get it. So they like get into debt to try to travel to these places or do these events. And what do you think about that? Should people really be like going into debt or like pushing their future off to enjoy certain experiences today because they think they won't be able to in the future?
I think FOMO is a real thing. um, I don't think you should jeopardize your future life for events now. I do think if you want to experience something now, you have to really be thoughtful on how you're going to make it happen without putting yourself in a bad position later, even now, because I do agree, like, you're young, you want to experience things, and it seems boring, and it seems like you're missing out in life if you are not doing certain things. And if you don't want to do it, then make it happen for yourself, but making sure that, like I said, you don't affect anything later in life. Because if you're taking out loans or I don't know how you're getting that money, right? But it's not going to help you in the future, then it's going to be like two ways, right? Either you take out the loan now, you feel good about yourself now, and then later you're going to be put in a bad position. But if you take the other side where you're like, I'm not going to do anything now, I'm going to put everything in savings so I'm better off later, then you're going to look back and you're going to regret not doing some things when you were younger. So I think you have to really just be very intentional about like how you're making money, where you're putting that money. And I always think about like what I'm going to do today. Whatever decision I make, am I going to be okay with this tomorrow? Am I going to be okay with this in 10 years? Can I look can I look at myself in the mirror and be okay with this decision? If you are okay with it, then go for it, right? But if you later think like, oh no, I know later it's gonna be bad, I might enjoy it for like a weekend, a week, and then I'm gonna be miserable after. So you have to really think about it. And I try to go on trips, usually on weekends only, with family or with friends, but I have to be saving up money for that, right? So at least I know, like, I want a trip like in the winter time, or I want a trip during springtime. Then I start saving now, so then I don't have to kind of struggle or say no later. So then I'm like, okay, I have the money, and this money is just for this trip, and then I'll be fine, and I'll be happy now, and then I know that I'm not hurting like financial stability in the future.
Growing up, let's say poor, we didn't really take many vacations or even vacations that many people see think that are memorable. But I think a lot of the vacations for us are really centered around family. Like, oh, did we have a good time with our family and things like that? Like, talk about your like transition from like smaller vacations to like vacations where you actually start traveling outside the country, start having these bigger experiences.
I haven't had many nice big vacations still. I don't have that much money. And I haven't been saving up that money to take a big vacation yet. I feel like I'm still kind of waiting um, for like in the future. We'll see. I'm still in school and it's a lot. But yeah, when we were younger, we the first vacation we ever took was to Wisconsin Dells, and that was what, a 3.5 hour drive from Chicago. And I planned that whole thing. Like I remember, and it was through my uncle and my aunt because well, they kind of took care of us right throughout the day because my mom was working. So I think my uncle was drunk and he's like, where do you want to go? And I think, there's billboards on Wisconsin Dells, there's ads, or at least back then there was a bunch of ads. I'm like, oh, I want to go to Wisconsin Dells. And I would told my cousin and my brother and my other cousin, she was younger. I'm like, you got to tell him, like, we got to go to Wisconsin Dells. So he was drunk. He's like, I'll take you anywhere you want. So we're like, okay, let's do it. And he's like, okay, do everything. Book the reservation, like the hotel, like get the directions, and we'll go. And just pick the day that you want, and we'll do it for a weekend. So I'm like, okay, I need your card. So he gave me his credit card or whatever card he had. And I put all the information. I called. I was looking at hotel rooms online, and I got it together. So managing or getting a plan together for a trip, I knew that, right? It wasn't my money, so I was good. But I still was conscious about it though because I knew that I was trying to find a time when it wouldn't be too expensive. I'm like, okay, there's a coupon. Oh, if we stay in their hotels, we get to play for free. Like they have dinner or they have a snack in between for free. So I was always thinking about that, making sure that you get a trip, but you're saving money at the same time, wherever you can. Now I think the first big trip that I had was senior year when I went to China. That was with school though, so like I wasn't really by myself, but that was pretty nice. I think I was like, wow, you can see the world, you can see something different from what you see every single day, and I thought that was like, wow, that's amazing. Definitely want to go back to China. I really liked it.
Yeah, that plane flight was brutal when we had that trip back in high school.
Um,
It was what,
13 hours,
13
13
hours on
for
a plane?
for us. We had a delay at the beginning, so it's a little bit longer. But I don't remember it as being like bad. I remember being a little bit uncomfortable, but not, not
Yeah.
crazy, not to set me back and be like, no, I don't want to go again.
Yeah, I remember my plane got delayed like 3 hours because we were in Canada and then something went wrong with the
Mm.
navigation system and we had to go back. We had to go back and wait for a new plane to go
Uh,
all the way again.
so sad.
Yeah, that was rough.
No, that's rough. Yeah. No, we didn't really have that. It was just like I don't remember it as being a long delay, so I don't know. It was a while ago. But that was the first one. I'm like, oh wow, you can see the world. Like, there's so many things out there. The other next trip that I had was to Mexico, to Cancun. And that's still pretty close. And I was like, oh, this is really cool though. Like, I wanted to go to Mexico because I had never been to Mexico before. And well, my mom is from Mexico, so I'm like, okay, let's go see. it's still not the same. It's very touristy. A lot of Americans are there, so it's not the same as going to like where she grew up. But I think it was still nice to kind of be in a new place. That was really cool, and I've been there twice, so I really like it. Same Cancun, Tulum. I really like it. Where else? And then just within the US, I've traveled for conferences through school. So, like, I've gone to San Diego, I've gone to LA, I've gone to Boston, I've gone to Louisiana, um, I've gone to New York with friends at least. So, it's like school and friends. So, I've tried to make like small trips like that, but I haven't had like a big trip by myself yet. And I think that's what I'm waiting for. Like, I've never been to Europe, and I feel like that's gonna, I really do want to save a lot of money for that because I don't want to make barely enough to be like I get to stay in a hotel and I get to have a few meals and I can't do anything else. Like I want to go to the museums, I want to go to the gardens, I want to go to whatever I can while I'm there, and I don't want to just go for a weekend. I want to go minimum a week to really like see what's out there and not only go to one place, like go from one place to another, you know? So I haven't had that experience yet, and I hope that it happens.
Yeah,
At
like
least
a
that plan.
proper vacation in the sense where you're not thinking about the money being spent. You're just,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy that. And that's very like, I think that's a pretty big milestone in life where you're like, yeah, I'm going vacation without even second guessing the
Mm-hmm.
cost of it.
And you know what's funny that I mentioned like all these places I went through school. It's like for me every time I travel, I don't think it's ever a vacation. Like the vacation 13, that was a vacation, you know? What do you have to do when you're 13? Nothing much. And then Cancun, I think that was one of the first like actual vacation. The first time. No, even the first time I think I had a summer program that I was still doing online. And then the second time I think it was a better vacation, but I was so burnt out from work, then I feel like I couldn't enjoy it. So it was like it didn't even feel like a vacation. I was just so exhausted. Like I didn't have any energy to do much. And then the other times that I've been somewhere else, that was all school related. So truly, I haven't had a real vacation.
You're still waiting on
I'm
it.
still waiting on it. Yeah.
Do you think let's say for your Europe trip, do you think you would enjoy it better alone as a solo trip or with family and friends?
I don't think I could go solo anywhere. I feel like that's a safety hazard, especially being a woman. So I wouldn't do it by myself. So I need a friend or I need a partner. I don't think I would want to go with family because I'm always a planner and I'm always the one getting everyone together. So it would not feel like a vacation. It would feel like a lot of work. And I feel like they wouldn't value the experiences that I've chosen as much as I would. So I feel like I need to go with someone who really is on the same page with me. Like we're gonna go do all these things and we gotta I'm not a morning person. So we're not getting up that early, you know. We're going at a decent time where it's a vacation. A vacation to me means I get to sleep in. I get to wake up without an alarm. That's nice. That's wow. That's real. That's a luxury right there. So that's what I like. And then knowing that we still have time to do all these things throughout the day, throughout the vacation. That's what I need. Not having to try to hurry everyone up and get them somewhere. Like I know I can get myself somewhere even if I wake up at like a later time compared to other they can't get themselves together. Yeah. So I'd rather go by myself. Not by myself, but with someone who understands that.
And going back to the planning, how do you feel about like do you think you're a planner your whole life, like from trying to figure out like your life from education to like your careers to the type of person you want to be?
Yes, I am a planner. I am very structured, I think. Very purposeful, I try to be because not having the answers is not good for me. I need to know what is happening. I need to know why things are happening. I need to know how things are happening. And not knowing, it doesn't freak me out, but it's like I could know. So why don't I know? So I feel like that's why growing up, one, I'm the oldest too. That's a big thing. So I had to always like make sure that everybody had everything, right? So if my brother needed something, like I had to make sure that he was taken care of. Like, tienes que cuidar tu hermano. You have to take care of your brother, make sure that he was good. Well, I also had my cousin. I'm still the oldest, right? So making sure that he was fine. If someone did something to them, then I gotta make sure that I go and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, confront them. So that was me, like planning how I'm gonna take care of them. Then I'm like planning how am I gonna take care of myself to be able to take care of them. So it's doing things that are going to set me up for success, and that's doing well in school, right? Getting into a program to help me with college, Chicago Scholars. Okay, I got into the program. Now I need to make sure that I'm being very involved and participating in the events to get into a good college. Got into good college. Okay, now I got to make sure that I have a job to sustain myself while in college so that I don't put pressure on my mom to give me money, and she didn't give me money throughout college. Like, I paid for my stuff where I took out loans because I didn't want her to be like, oh, I need to pay for her school. Like, no way. So that way I felt like, okay, she doesn't have to worry about me, she only has to worry about my brother. So okay, cool, that's good, set. I planned it for my job, I'm doing my classes, cool. And then in that planning, making sure that, well, at least my brother knows I'm doing this stuff, so it's like he has that idea of like, you can do it and you have to do it, right? Well, at least for him, like, what else are you gonna do? This is pretty good. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, right? So that's pretty good. I'm already trying to set an example, right? And then with my life, I think choosing a field that gives me options. I like having options because, like I said, I get bored easily. So in my field of communication sciences, it's speech language pathology, right? But it's communication sciences is kind of the big umbrella, and then we have speech language pathology and we have audiology. I'm in the speech language pathology area, but I still get to learn about audiology, so that's pretty nice. So now I know about hearing, and hearing throughout the lifetime, about being from a newborn to old age, right? Well, now I know about baby hearing screening, so how that's part of it's a law that people get, like babies have to get screened for hearing. Now I know about, like, okay, hearing loss is not really a normal part of aging, but you have to get support for that. Well, in speech language pathology, I know we have so many things that we can work under. We can work under like cognition, so thinking, right? We can work with swallowing, how you're eating your food. We can think about like school, like academic work. We can think about voice. We can think about speech. We can think about language. There's so many things that we can do in that field. So I've learned about like school settings. I've learned about clinical settings. I've learned about medical settings. So I know a lot of, like, I have insight into a lot of areas, which helps me kind of be like a resource to my family. So if they need something, then they're like, okay, well, I need to go to the hospital. Well, because I work in a medical setting, I know that an interpreter has to be provided, at least for my mom. She's Spanish speaking and a monolingual Spanish speaker, so she doesn't know any English. So whenever she has to go, I'm like, you have to request an interpreter. So I know that because of that experience. In the schools, I'm like, someone has an IEP or an individualized education plan. I was a school speech language pathologist, so I know what components go into that. So now I can tell them, like, you need to request this, or you have the right to get this information. You have the right to participate in the formation of this plan. So I have that aspect. So I plan to make sure that I have all the tools that I need to support them and to support myself, right? So now I know, like, if I'm talking about like child development, if I ever want to have children, then I know, like, okay, these are some of the things that you have to take in mind when you're thinking about like their development of language and cognition. So, yes, I plan a lot because I want to have all the tools and resources that I can to support me and support my family. Because if I don't, I feel like, I don't know. There's so much information I have access to. Why don't I put it together somehow to help other people?
Yeah, and I feel like that helps us navigate the world, I would say, because I think in our communities, that's what people lack, the access to these type of tools, and not only the tools, the a good basis for information. Like, okay, I can trust this person if I have a education question or a financial question, and I think a lot of people, either because they don't have access to it or don't speak the language, lack these type of resources and then get misguided along the way. I think especially with financial literacy, most people don't know how to navigate either the credit system or the proper uses of like loans and mortgages. And a lot of people get stuck with really bad debt and don't know how to get out, and it just keeps piling, and they feel like they can never get out of these like ditches of like debt keeps piling and piling. How do you think you've navigated debt, credit score, credit cards, and all that?
So debt, I think I couldn't find a way around it because I was going to college, and like I said, I didn't want my mom to feel the need to have to pay for anything. She did think she gave me $1,000 for that first semester. I was paying like about 6,000 for room and board. $1,000 is still not even close to half, right? But it was something. So then I put that money into that. But I realized I had to take out loans, so I didn't really know how to do that. I literally I was in at the financial office, like honestly, almost every single week, asking like, okay, I need a loan because I have no money to pay for this. I don't know how to pay for it. I don't know how to take out a loan. I don't know what this means. Luckily, I did know about like unsubsidized and subsidized loans through Chicago Scholars. So I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure that I do subsidized, and I gotta make sure that I have a low interest rate. So that gave me some kind of background into learning how to like select a loan. And then through the financial office, like they told me like it's pretty similar, like this is what it is. But sometimes I feel like depending on who you get, they won't tell you. They're like, just take out a loan, figure out which one you want. And that's kind of messed up. But so that's kind of the background. With credit cards, I think I got my first credit card junior year of college, sophomore, junior year of college, because I'm like, I kept hearing about like you need to build your credit score, you need to build your credit score. And I was in a summer program and they gave us kind of a financial literacy class, and they're like, okay, get a credit card, build your credit score, make sure you're paying on time, making sure that you use it for necessities, you know. So then I'm like, I need to get one. So then I do remember asking someone who knew about it and be like, which one's the best one to get? And they kind of gave me some advice on it. And I'm like, okay, I'll get this one. And it was a Discover one. And I'm like, apparently that's friendlier for students. I'm like, okay, I'll get that one. And then it still does have a low kind of limit on it. So, um, right? So like I took that out, and I feel like I'm very scared of credit cards because I know my mom has a bunch of credit cards and I never really knew. It's just like, oh, you have a credit card and you get discounts or whatever. But now knowing that you can go into such debt very quickly, I'm like, I don't want to use it. And through like honestly through the apps on the phone on the credit cards, I learned like you're only supposed to use like 3% of your credit card like limit. I'm like, I didn't know that. Or like 30% or something. 30%. And I'm like, huh. No one directly told me this information. So I have to use those pieces that they give me from the apps or from other people that know this, right? Because you're not going to take financial advice from any random person because you don't know what their financial status is like. Even if they say what it is, it might not really be it. So I feel like I'm very cautious, at least with credit cards. With my credit score, I feel like I still struggle because I haven't set a routine. Given like I have that tight budget, I feel like I never know when to use my credit card, and I'm like, I'm using it too much, and I'm like, I'm not, because I have to pay it off. But I feel like I haven't set a routine, and like I said, I'm very structured, and when I don't have that structure, I feel like it makes me less likely to manage something well.
Definitely, credit cards can be scary. Even though I went to a business school to study accounting, they don't really teach you any of that stuff. I took finance classes, and it's a lot of theory about how investments work, but it's never like most people don't take that advice and use it for themselves. I think I also got my first credit card when I was like a junior, even though I had a debit card before, but I think that was my first take on credit cards. And I got like the basic stuff like Chase, like because I had a bank and that was simple. And I think after watching so many videos and things like that, that's where I started to build up a basis of is this good information or is not? Because there was so much misleading things. And I think that's hard for people to distinguish if they don't have the background in some type of accounting, finance, and figuring that out. Like, okay, there's these dates, they're important for this reason. And the reason they're important is because their books close this day or your account switches this day. And for a long time, I think my credit score didn't grow that much because of like wasn't using it because I was like I'm not really sure when to be using it, but I'm like I know I have to be using it. So I built up the information. And now I don't even touch my debit card. Like I don't even carry it. I just everything goes on a credit card, and I paid off like instantly, so there's no interest accrued. But I think for most people, it's also the idea of they're spending money they don't have, and I think it's a pretty good tool for quick, let's say, for quick use of money you don't have yet. And it gets dangerous when you start accumulating the debt because these credit cards have really high interest rates. And not only does once that hits you, the impact to your credit score, which is more drastic than most people think. Like it could stop you from getting a lease, a car loan, like houses, everything. And I think when I first um, got my rental property, I was kind of iffy on my credit scores. I'm like, I know it's good. At that point, I had like I think like a 780, which is still pretty good. But I'm like, it could have been better. Like, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. But it takes so much time. Like to improve your credit score takes way longer than to mess it up one moment. Because I remember one time I don't know what happened, but I applied for a credit card and it got declined because I had already applied for another credit card that same week, and it that looks bad, and it dropped like 15, 20 points, and I was like, well, like that's gonna take me like 6 months to like recoup back after like just a week of trying to navigate this. But now that's way better. I think I have a 839 or something like that, and it becomes way easier to get access to things like leases. Like if they see your income statements and your credit score, they're like, oh, whoa, we gotta sign this person on right away. Like, or loans, car loans as well. Like when they see that credit score, they're like, well, choose any car you want. Like people also start treating you differently when they see those type of numbers, that they see you're financially responsible, even though it's not really a tool for that. It's just how you manage that, because a lot of the impact of credit score is your credit mix, which is, oh, it's like 5%, 5 or 10%, but it's a good chunk of how much debt you have in which categories. Like mortgages are pretty good debt, car loans are credit card debt is bad. There's good mix, and I think most people forget to manage that mix. Like a credit card debt should not exceed a certain amount. And I think as a young student, or like students when we're in college, we overlook that and be like, oh, it's just a credit card, like I could pay it off, and start making choices that don't really impact us now because like, oh, it's the credit score, I could fix it up later when I plan to buy a house. But over time, you really want to make sure that you don't damage your credit score. And I think for a lot of our parents that don't know the credit system, it's even worse because they get hooked on like these stores that tell you, oh, apply for a credit card. And when you apply for it, like it makes your credit score probably worse if you don't get approved. And if you do get it approved, like you could forget, especially back then when credit card bills came in mail rather than online. And I think having a system online is way better, and knowing what kind of where your loans are, where all the debt is at. And I think you have student loans. So I think how is that managing like the location of all this debt? Because at one point it feels overwhelming to know that I have a credit card with this company, and then I have a loan over here, and then I have a mortgage over here, and then a debt over here. How is it trying to really figure it out and put it together?
I think it can be very hard. One, I don't have a mortgage, but I don't have a house. Um, I don't have a car either. Like I have a car, but my car's like
Paid off.
paid off. My car's from 2006. It was like 2 grand, and it still works, man. It's a pretty good car, but I don't use it anymore. But I think my student loans are the biggest ones, and I'm like, oh, I have so much loan, so much money that I owe. But I've learned that it's kind of part of it. Like, I'm trying to pay it off, and I was trying to kind of decide when I went back to school. I'm like, do I want to kind of put in like a petition to stop the loans, or like for me not to pay because I'm back in school, kind of like another like grace period. But it's not really a grace period. It's more like your interests are going to accumulate, you're just not paying. And I'm like, no thank you, I don't want that. So I'm still kind of paying off what I can, and at least I feel good. I'm like putting a little bit of money into it, so I don't have to worry that this interest is going to continue to accumulate throughout. When I'm talking about like credit card debt, I think I have I have 3 credit cards, but I'm using now the ones that have a higher limit because it's it protects at least me from like using more than 30% of that limit, right? So if I have like, let's say, a credit card of $500 and I'm using groceries, my groceries are like 100, 120, 150, 200 sometimes, right? That's a lot of money. Like if I've only $500 and I use that credit card, I'm going to start going over that 30% very quickly, so I try not to use it. So then I use the one that has a higher limit, but then it can also have to be very, like I said, intentional. Be like, okay, I'm putting everything on this credit card. I have to pay it off and making sure that my balance is under that 30%. And honestly, the reason I got my last credit card was because my dog, she had a tumor and she had to have surgery. And I'm like, I don't have money. Like, I literally have been putting in everything for school. Like, I don't have money I had some money, but it wasn't going to cover everything. So I'm like, maybe applying for a credit card, like I haven't applied for a credit card in a while, would be good. So I applied for the credit card and I paid for her surgery through the credit card. And that kind of saved me there. So I do get when other people, they're like, they don't know about credit cards or they just take it because it's an easy way out. I do think it is an easy way out, but you have to be thinking about how that's going to affect, like you said, the credit score. So I'm like, okay, now I have a credit card. I have this. Now I have to pay it off. So at least for me, I have to organize myself. I'm like, okay, I'm not using this credit card. I'm using this credit card for these things. And then I'm using this credit card for these things. So credit card with the higher limit, I tend to use with things that are like, like very high up there. So the surgery was one of them. Now I use it for like, I had like an event for school and I had to book a hotel. I used it for that. Anything that it's like a big purchase. And I try to use the other one to be like groceries maybe. And then I kind of organize myself that way, and then I try to pay it off. I'm like, okay, I also have them set up to automatic payments because I forget a lot of times because I'm doing like school stuff, and that's kind of like in my head all the time and not the money stuff. And it's easily like, you can easily forget about it. So then I have it already set. So then I don't have to worry about it. And if I want to give more than the minimum at that point, then I just go in and I'm like, okay, let me give more. So that's how I organize myself.
Do you have a routine that you follow, like when you check your finances or?
No, that's something that I'm so good at school stuff. I'm not good at money stuff. Like for school, I have my planner, I have my dates, I have my Google Calendar. Like I have so many things in place to make sure that I'm organized. Money wise, I'm not. So I feel like that's my area of like growth. That I don't have a date where I sit down. I'm like, okay, let me look at all the stuff that I've been spending money on. Like even if it's food, like at least I need to know like what I'm spending my money on. Okay, I paid rent. Okay, how much? Well, rent is the same, but like how much was electricity this month? Like I'm not paying attention to that yet. Or how much was Wi-Fi? Doesn't tend to change either, but like I don't have that set, and I don't look at my bank accounts often enough. I feel like that's another thing. Like I think I just trust the money is there because I'm like, oh, I have my money, and I'm kind of keeping track in my head. But there's so many things that can happen that I didn't know could happen, like identity theft. That's a big one, and my account is going through that, where someone took out a car loan under my name, and I didn't know that for a while because I wouldn't go into my account, and I saw something. I'm like, oh, that's fine, and I didn't pay attention to it. And I'm still finding that with the bank because they don't know. They're like, oh, we canceled it, but it's still showing on my account, and I'm like, oh. I need to go in and really figure this out. And that identity stuff thing, because I got reported to like all the bureaus, now it comes up, and I had to do like a whole credit freeze. And when I was applying to for a lease, they're like, we can't even look at your credit report because it's frozen. And I was like, oh, and it was such a hassle. So I definitely recommend setting a schedule and a routine for um, financial aspects of life, because if you don't, it could really easily get out of hand and become very overwhelming. And I think start like small, like at least checking maybe once a week your account, and then like build up to it.
Yeah, because I have a pretty wild routine. Every morning, I check my bank accounts, my credit cards, my mortgage, and my car loan, and my credit score, just to see, even though most of that doesn't change on a daily basis or weekly, it changes like on a monthly basis. I think for me, it just became such a habit to check how much money I have. Okay, this is it. This is like, oh, my investments, especially, but that's just like my main like job. So that's a separate thing. But checking every day to me is so important because it shows that, oh my, things can happen overnight, like identity theft, things like that. Like I want to be ahead of like things like that to make sure I'm like okay, or like chargebacks. Like sometimes you could get charged double. Like I remember an Amazon purchase, like they charged me twice, and I'm like, I don't remember buying this same item, and then it wouldn't even show on the account. I had to like contact customer service. Like there's these small charges that might add up and not know about it if you're not checking constant enough, or also being aware of like what you're buying and having set up like notifications for when your card gets charged, like okay, like gets charged. I'm like, okay, I'm aware. Like if not, like whoa, a random charge at a random time of day. I think that's a pretty good routine to also set.
I agree.
How do you rate your financial skills, whether it be literacy or knowledge, from 1 to 10 cookies?
Okay. Cookies.
Yeah, cookies.
Why cookies?
I don't know. Whoever's a smart cookie.
Interesting. Um, Honestly, like a 5.
You think you're? I think
I'm
like average person is a 5. Why do you
I
say a 5?
Because like I said, I don't have those the routine in place to be checking all that stuff, and I don't know a lot of information about like financial, like how to make financial decisions that are backed up, like I honestly don't even try to get any financial information from like online information. Like I get it from people that I know, that are close to me, that I know they know what they're doing, because like I said, things can go bad very quickly. So I feel like I don't do much investing because I really don't know how it works, and the little bit of I do is same like from people that I know. But I feel like I could be doing better, like learning about like your 401k. Like no one really tells you that, especially because my mom doesn't have a job that provides that, so she never told me about that, right? Or I never saw that. Other people talk about it. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And I have an account because of my first job, and I still don't really know how it works. And that's another piece that you have to think about. So I feel like I haven't gotten, como dicen, my ducks in a row. I haven't gotten my stuff together to really say that like I know what I'm doing, because I'm not. And I feel like I wouldn't say like, oh no, like, I know what I'm doing and I have everything to, no, I don't. And it takes time to figure it out. I just hope that whatever decisions I'm making now are going to help me and not going to hurt me in the future.
I like the honest answer. I think most people stay away from an like honest, or even to being honest themselves of like where I am financially and like what I'm capable of, my decisions in terms of like my financial decision making. And I think you summarized it pretty well, saying that you're average and you take advice from people you know, because online advice can be misleading in so many ways if you don't have a basis to be distinguishing right from wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you found the episodes interesting. The next interview will air next month. Enjoy the holidays.